Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Thunderstock Show. It's a collection of valuable brainstorms to enhance your life, liberty, and pursuit of property. This season is my second season with talking about EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System. We are talking about how to work on your business, not just in your business, big difference, and also how to use tools such as the People Analyzer to figure out who's the right client to sit in your workload. So today's special guest is Chris Castillo. Chris is from Texas. He's been an EOS implementer for several years now. He does certified with Colby and from the greater Dallas area. Chris, thanks for coming on the show again. It's been a pleasure to have you.
Thanks, Ross. Appreciate being back. It's always fun to take time to talk about clients and business, and maybe somebody that hears this can maybe solve a problem, inadvertently during our conversation.
Yeah. My hope for anyone listening is to take something out of this and be like, I should start doing this in my own life or business, right? Because a lot of the
Yes.
folks that listen may still be working a job, and that, side hustle is very common. But a lot of the folks I have are business owners that are around the same size as, Chris and I, where we might have a couple contractors, maybe a few full-time employees, but we're trying to grow the business in a strategic, smart way. Before we get into that though, Chris, when in your journey did you realize that the EOS implementer was the right seat for you?
Uh, so in my previous business, I was the integrator without even knowing what an integrator was, and doing all the things to keep the business going. And once we found EOS, it made things so much clearer. And I realized that I was the guy staying up till 2 a.m. I was the one doing all the work, starting on Tuesday or Monday of the week and always already being behind, never really keeping up with the business. And when EOS came into play and being able to delegate, hiring the right people, and then realizing they weren't the right people because we weren't clear on the job description or what we actually wanted and all the nuances of EOS. And once I sold that my part of the business, I realized there are people out there that are doing the exact same thing, some of them suffering, not going to bed, not going to the gym. The business is running them. And I thought I could do this, especially when a friend of mine pulled me aside and said, "Hey, whatever you did for your business, can you come do that for my business?" So it gave me that encouragement to, dive into EOS, really see what it's all about, all the nuts and bolts of it, and then go and try to find the clients to go and help them. And again, almost to a T, everybody I talk to in some form or another, they're doing the same thing I did. And I love helping them and seeing the light bulb come on when they're like, "Oh, I'm doing things that aren't making money in the business, or I don't need to be doing that to keep my business going."
Yeah, that's such an fun for everyone listening. The integrator seat, for every four visionaries, there's usually one
Hmm.
by their DNA integrator. So it's always fun, Chris, hearing people that were that were owners of businesses and integrators because they have that very special, unique perspective when they come into the EOS seat. A lot of people like me that are listening that are more geared towards visionary. Boy, is it night and day when you find somebody that can, help you to come back to earth versus holding on to the 100 balloons and you're out in space just all the ideas. You did mention about the business running you at one
Yes.
point, and you're like, "Look, we have to put a system and a framework, and there's this. No more. Enough's enough." What about being an EI is different than your prior business in terms of working on the business versus in the business?
That's a great question. I think being objective, because I'm walking in the room, talking to a client and seeing the whole team, how they're actually working together or not working together. Compared to it being in a business, there's a phrase we use that you can't read the label when you're inside the bottle. So when you're in the business, everything's an emergency, everything needs to be done. You think, I'll just, get this done real quick. And it takes 4 hours of your day when it doesn't make any money for the business. It doesn't do anything for the business. It was just the easy thing to do. As an EOSI, you get to be in there and be objective and start helping them understand what the priorities are. And there's actually a lot less than they think, because if everything's important, nothing's important. And saying, okay, these are the things we're going to work on this week. That's it. Everything else is an exception, rather
Mm.
than everything being an exception and them being reactionary, because it became a rite of passage to run a business. That's how you deal with all those things. You're constantly on fire. Coming back on Monday, you can't be gone a weekend because there's always phone calls from this not working, that not working. And that's just the status quo, and I'm there to tell them that that's not. It's a different way to run a business so that you can have a family life, not have the business strain you or be constantly on the go in the business when you can just say, "We're gonna work this many days a week," or whatever the schedule is to meet your for your business and your clients. But then be able to take that time off, because if you don't recharge, rejuvenate, then you're not helping the business, you're actually hurting it. And we can see that over and over again when people say, "I don't have enough time to do my work." And my first question is, well, what are you doing with that time now? It's amazing how it's not revenue generating, it's not that important, or it's somebody else's job. So there's a lot to
Yeah.
unpack there when we get into what are we doing? What do we have to do? And what do we have to stop doing?
I want to pause you, and that's such an interesting frame I haven't heard before, but it's so true. If you can label the time management issue, one of three things, and I believe you said, is it important or urgent? Is it somebody else's job, which is a big one?
Yes.
And then number three was, is it revenue generating,
Yes.
especially if you're in a size business like Chris or I, where like, hey, obviously we want to be working in our session days or client facing work. That's revenue generating. It's doing the thing that we love to do. But the days that you're not doing that, you have to ask, is this revenue generating or is this busy work? Is this for my admin to do? Is this for my editor to do? Whoever, right? The accountant to do? How do you, I love the phrase, hard to read the label from inside the bottle. You help others to read the label so that they can
Yes.
see their blind spots. But a
Yes.
big part of working on your business, I think, is seeking label readers. So what do you do as, you know, to get help for your own practice to read, to so to speak, read the label while you're still inside the bottle?
So, as an implementer, we run our own practice. We're a franchisee of EOS, and we have to do the exact same thing we do for our clients, which is funny because sometimes my previous business was a coaching company. Sometimes they say coaches make the worst clients from the standpoint is they think they know what they're doing, but
Mm,
they can't see what they're not doing. And so we have to do the same thing. We have to have a scorecard. If we have an assistant, we have to have a level 10 every week. We have to do the exact same thing because I even told my assistant this when I hired her. All the books I assign to my clients, I need you to read
mm,
because there will be things that come up that you need to answer from that information. And I don't want you to call me when it's already readily available to you. That's got to happen for everyone. So we have a scorecard. We have our level 10 meeting. Am I doing the things in my seat to find clients, service them in the room? And is she doing things about the email, the logistics, getting the room ready, things like that? Are those things happening? If they are, we're making money. If we're not making money. So we won't have a business if we keep doing what we're not supposed to be doing. And that's sometimes it's frustrating because I asked a question to somebody before and they go, "This is just extra work. Why do I have to put all this stuff down on a scorecard?" I go, "Because it's accountability. When people get done at the end of the week on my calendar on Friday, it says update the scorecard. And what that does is it allows you to slow down and reflect on the last 5 days because if people wait longer, they're gonna forget. "What was last Tuesday? I totally forgot." And then it becomes less important. At least within a week, we can remember what's going on. We write down what we did well and what we didn't do well. And it allows us to focus on the next week because we tell them, "You don't have to climb the entire mountain. Let's just keep moving forward on the right path." Sometimes you get off the path, we can get back on, that's okay. And we talk about people getting focused for 90 days at a time. And you can imagine keeping people focused for a week, much less 90 days on a rock or two. So if we can get them to build that muscle every single week, same time, same day with level 10, write your numbers down, celebrate it when you get something done, and ask, how can I help you when something's not done? That's how leaders can become working on the business when they're actually seeing what's going on in the room. When they can, rather than saying, never mind, I'll do it, meaning they're doing that person's job, they can say, huh, how can I help you get better at this? Is there something I can do for you to get you to keep doing this even better? That's what a leader's supposed to do is help them execute in the business. So we use the tools because we have to do the exact same thing. And if I'm not using my tools to prepare for my clients, then I'm doing them a disservice.
Two things I want to highlight from that answer. Number one, you make sure that the thing that you do for your clients, you treat your own practice, even if it's just one other person. But if it's more, especially so. You do the same service for your clients you do for yourself. So often do I hear business owners be like, "Oh, I'm the cobbler with no shoes." I worked with a client that did ERP consulting. So what they weren't even using an ERP, they were using Microsoft Excel and they were doing something
Mhm.
else. And I was like, well,
Yeah.
let's start there, right? And the other thing that you said that I can take personally, that's just an eye opener for me is having something on the calendar, say it's a Friday, at the end of the week, and be like, all right, let's fill in the scorecard while the week is still fresh and reflect for maybe it takes 15, 20 minutes. So what? But
Yeah.
that's a way that people can, um, that they can step back, reflect, and if they want to take a weekend, they can do it without, holding on to several weeks in a row. Because I know, sure, do I do an L10 and do I report on numbers and things like that weekly? Yeah, but there's some times where I'll take 1 or 2 or 3 weeks with me into that weekend.
Yeah.
Now, that's why I love talking to integrators. Look at that. Systems and processes to keep us in check. Now, one of the things that I want to transition to is we had mentioned before about not just the importance of our own team, but analyzing who are the right people to sit in your client roster because
Mhm.
we can't help everybody as much as we love to. It doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense for Chris to have 100 people that he's helping roll out EOS in their company at one time. That's too much. Same here. I only have so much time and capacity. So it's important for as much as we want to say yes and help people to also figure out who are the people we don't want to help. What are some, now that you've got 5+ years as EOSI, what are some of the ways that you look at evaluating potential fit clients or prospects that maybe you do now that you didn't do in the beginning?
Yeah, that's a great question because, again, we're running a practice and of course we want revenue. So sometimes we'll take on a client that is sort of questionable from the standpoint of revenue or profitability. Sometimes we take on pro bono clients. When I did that early on, I did two to get some reps because I did the lessons, I did all the work, but now I needed, real world examples of experience of being in the room. It went amazing, but I just needed to not practice, really put it into effect. And what happens is as we go through and you get figure this out pretty quickly. The the clients that aren't your right fit, we all have ideal clients. We say at least EOS is I say 3 million in revenue or more because typically if they have 3 million in revenue, they have profitability. 1
Mm,
million, it's questionable. I've learned the hard way. They say they want help, but they can't afford it because they're not doing revenue generating stuff. And typically 10 employees. So it's really cut and dry because if people have 10 employees, they know it's getting crazy. People aren't doing what's supposed to be doing, not really sure what they should be doing. So that's typically my ideal client. After that, types of clients come to you from your experience. I've had technology companies, professional services, family owned businesses, because I was in one. They just sort of gravitate towards you, and then you realize those are your ideal clients. My favorites are the ones that want to have a conversation about what can EOS do for them, and also tell me what's going on in their business. The ones that think we're just going to give them a magic bullet and it's going to be over in one day, and I explain to them, but they don't hear it. They still, you're going to fix
mhm.
this, right? It'd be all done by Monday, right? But, okay, no, it's not. This is what it's going to look like. Even though I show them on the slide, I show them the process to tell them exactly what they're in for, and say this is not a magic bullet, it's not a seminar. We are going to change the way you run a business and the behavior in that business. And as you go through as an implementer, when I got somebody as a referral from an existing client that didn't make it to the third day because startup, no real money, they just knew it was going to get crazy in a hurry, which I can appreciate, but they have to be able to be all in. And I realized when the integrator wasn't showing up to the sessions, they're not all in. So
Um,
there's obvious signs. When you're young and in the business, you want to make money, you overlook some of that. But as you get older, you get more particular, and now we have systems where they're less than 1 million. We have Eleap Academy for them. There's other ways for them to get EOS, obviously the book and so forth. But we are always refining who we love to work with. Some do it by quantity. Sometimes it's quality. I have found that the ones that are appreciative of my time, open and honest from the get go, are typically great clients. If it's a revenue problem or getting paid, I tell them, don't worry about that. Pay as you go. It's fine. Our job is to get you better at this because that's just an issue for you, among
mm.
others. So it's nothing, everything can be solved. We just have to figure out what's the most important to solve and then work our way towards what the plan is for the year and so forth.
So one of the things that I'm kind of inferring is just like when you're analyzing who should be on the team for hiring, they call it GWC or and core values in the people analyzer.
Yes.
Core value is non-negotiable, right? If someone's
Yep.
not open and honest for you, it doesn't matter if you have full roster of clients or you're still looking for it, like, deal breaker for core values. But GWC sometimes is the tricky part because it's not black. You can get a sliding scale. It's not binary. They plus minus here.
That's
And
right.
one of the things that I think you and I agree on in CII is the more experience that we get, the more we have these learned standards of like, this is what get at one and has capacity looks like in a conversation with a prospect. If they don't have the wherewithal or the commitment to make the meetings, or that they flake, whatever, then it has to move to a no. Whereas the beginning, a lot of times people don't really know what the standard is to set or how to enforce the standard.
Yeah. Well, I would also add to that, a lot of people don't have standards when it comes to running a business, so they're not
Mm,
used to it. When we come across in our free 90-minute session, we're giving them a lay of the land, every single thing the book has to offer, and this is what it looks like real time. Are you in or not? And sometimes they don't, they're like, what do you mean we have to meet for 7 hours plus or minus an hour? Like, that's what we're doing. There's no question of what we're doing because some people, they are reactive in their business and things aren't very cut and dry. They don't have a standard of how they perform in their business, so they're not used to it. So we have to model what we expect from our clients. And once we talked earlier about this, once I get within the team and start figuring out what's going on and start looking under the hood and seeing what's not working, start getting the right people in the right seats on the team, then what always comes up is a lot of the issues on the issues list are clients that they've had for a long time that are not their clients anymore. Don't pay on time, they're hard to work with, they don't give you the material they need and things like that. They don't follow a process. So once we get our clients a proven process, we build one for them, help them understand what that looks like. And I'm like, now you go out and you start testing your clients to see if they are core value fit and if they follow your process. If they aren't, they're not your clients anymore. And as the business grows, there will be clients that they served 5 years ago that they should not be serving anymore. They need to go elsewhere because what they're providing is a higher level, higher value, and those clients, unfortunately, are 80% of the problems, and they're getting 20% of the revenue from them, just general numbers. But I see it on the issues list all the time, this, and I'm like, "Tell me more about this, and why is that person on the list of that company where this company I never hear about?" Well, they're amazing. And I'm like, why aren't we serving more of those companies? And then I always ask this question. It makes it funny. Like, we don't know how to find our ideal client. I'm like, well, tell me about your best client and tell me how you found them. And then the light bulb comes on. I'm like, let's start doing more of that. And the underlying issue, and this is what happens with a lot of teams, they might read the book, but they don't get this. When operations or the leadership team gets that we need to serve this higher level client, it's going to be a longer sales cycle. It's going to be a little harder, but worth it. The
mhm.
sales team is not on board. The sales team's like, I don't want to do that because it's going to be harder and longer for that commission check. I'm going to keep selling to these other people. Now we have a big disconnect between two teams. And that's where leaders have to be really strong. Typically, sales teams are, unfortunately, sometimes hard to manage because you want them to perform, and sometimes you just leave them alone to do that. But we have to get them on the same page. I tell them that in day one. If your leadership team leaders, sales, ops, finance are not strong, any weakness is going to show up, and it always does. And that just gets us another chance to help them realign and get them all on the same page. Because when they start serving that higher level client, it's a whole new set of issues. Yes, they make more money, but other things come along that they never would have got to if they kept serving the other client. But if they want to grow to 20 million, that's where they have to live.
It's so interesting to have the
Mhm.
frame where when you're running a session or your clients or any business running on EOS does these weekly meetings. One of the rules or the frameworks is if you have an issue about the same person on the team, let's say it's Jim
Yeah.
Smith in the warehouse in production or whatever, and 3 quarters in a row he makes it on the issues list for Chris. It's pretty evident that like it's not there's a people analyzer. We might know that this person's not a good fit for the organization, but we have for some reason haven't pulled the trigger. More rare is it that people, it's the same thing with clients, right? You have that one
Yes.
client, maybe they have
Yes.
that they've worked with since the beginning, 10 years now, and 5 years ago it started going south, but they've dealt with that person potentially be on the issues list for quarters after quarter after quarter. And they know what to do when it's an employee to delegate and elevate, but it feels like it's harder to do as a customer. And I think what you said made me realize just how common that really is.
Yeah. Well, you have to realize that there's a couple of things there that when you're running a business, a lot of times they make a decision and don't go back ever again. They don't take the time to make, was that a good choice? Like you mentioned before, they're running on Excel spreadsheets. That's fine. And they just keep moving on rather than taking the time, like, you know what, we need a CRM right now. And then we need to train our people on this. That would make us go farther faster. But they're like, well, it's always worked that way. So we never went back. And that's what happens with those, existing clients. We were one of our first clients. We can't let them go. I'm like, are you actually serving them the right way? Let's look at it both ways. They're not an ideal client for you, and you're probably not spending the time and energy you should anyways. It's pretty obvious. And when we have a client that keeps coming on the issues list, so the other question on that is, why is that the person that owns that relationship, why aren't they doing something about it? What's going on there? It's
Mm.
never one-sided. Like if Jim's on the issues list in the storeroom every month, every quarter, what's the leader doing about that? What's going on there? Because and that's where I think we come into play because we can ask that second, third level question that yes, that's an issue. It's been going on for a while, but tell me more about the leader. Tell me more about what's going on there. What about the integrator? Why hasn't the integrator solved this before? And what's going on there? And so we'll never get to perfection or mastery, but we're always challenging ourselves to get as far as we can. And I tell people, unfortunately, you'll get the leadership team perfect. Everything's running great. You're all going in the right direction. Someone retires. You're like, ugh. Now I go back and have to find those people. And some businesses, that's constant. They're constantly looking for leaders over and over and over again. My friend I talked to the day, he's got a service business, and he said, it's so hard to find a great leader in this space, but I have to keep trying because he doesn't want to keep doing it, right? He can't grow the business if he's in the business.
Mm.
So that's where we have to decide what is the plan? Where are we going? And then what do we need to do to get there?
Yeah, and one of the things that you said is it's never a one-sided issue, right? There's
Yep.
al the salesperson and the prospect, or the employee and the leader, whatever it looks like. But to your point, like, I had a conversation just the other week with a client, and there was an issue with the leadership team, and it's like, well, the people analyzer this, and this and that, between it looked like on paper they fit the seat, and the solution, Chris, was really taking a combination of Colby and Take Flight, like, just like, okay,
Mhm.
well, let's look at not just the accountability chart and what they're supposed to be doing and this and that, but like, how is that leader communicating to the
Yes.
person?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, well, you're a high D and this person's a high C for Take Flight or disc,
Yeah.
and you're a high quick start and low fact finder. This person's a low, like, zero quick start and high fact finder. So
Yeah.
you can't communicate to someone who's the opposite of you in the same way that you would communicate to yourself.
Yes.
And I think that what I've found with using that same frame with prospects is the way to communicate to, say, a CPA firm may be different than an IT firm. It
Yes.
sure is different than talking to a business coach or another marketing agency. They're all service-based businesses, sure. But
Yeah.
the personalities within the service-based businesses value different things and are different people by the nature of, what they do.
Yes.
So what are some of we already mentioned open and honest, but you do have a very strong background as an integrator with process. But what are some of the people on the other side of the table that are prospects? Like, the way that you personally communicate a message, who are some of the types of people that, like, really receive it? It's like, oh, the way that Chris says it, I get it. It clicks, right?
Um, well, it's interesting because as an integrator, by nature, you'd think I'd connect with integrators, but typically it's the visionary that, again, they have lots of ideas. They tend to be above the business unless they're stuck in it. And you can tell they're in pain
Mm.
because, again, I've been there. I've been coming home late. Kids are already in bed. I missed all that. Or my son's at soccer and I'm at the coffee shop trying to catch up on stuff I didn't do during the week. And it never ends. You're just worn out. And I can tell in their eyes and in their conversation, they're already there. They're like, I should have been here if I'd been this far along 5 years ago, and I'm not. And nothing's working. Once I explain what I do and how it does this make sense for you, typically I get the nod. Yes, that makes total sense. If I can get an agreement from them, then we talk to their team and we need the same thing. Because again, We are not consultants. We teach them a system of tools, a complete system of tools that allows them to change the way they run their business. And we need them all in because if we drag them in, we're going to drag them around. And that
Totally.
happens, right? People say, we're all in. Well, that's the visionary said, we're all in. Nobody else, everybody else has their arms folded. We have to, part of our business is relational. We have to get in the room with them. We have to see them face to face or virtual and see if they actually want to do what's necessary, right? If they agree, and the reason we do the 90-minute session is as we go along and talk about the tools and the disciplines, people in the room start nodding because they made a connection with what they're going through. Wow, if I had that tool for Marty last week, that would have been a lot faster than me taking 2 hours to figure out what's going on. So that's what we want. We want to see connection and we want them to say, I think this is going to be amazing. Yes, it's going to be worth it. And that they also mentally have to be in investment mode. If they say this costs too much money, and so then I do equation on the board for them. I'm like, this is what you're going to pay me per day. And this is what you're probably losing every single day. And everybody starts agreeing. And I'm like, and the math problem doesn't, it's not an objection anymore. Let's just talk about what we're going to do for you. Uh, and this is what it's going to look like. Again, we need agreement. But you mentioned before, I had that thought, a team or a leader looks at the people analyzer or the accountability chart, and it allows them to sort of get focused in. Okay, we just use this. I'm still not clear what the problem is. Let's go a little bit deeper. So it allows them a path to find the answer, whereas most leaders don't even know where to start, so they don't. And they let that
Mm,
person fester for a while, hoping it's going to get better, and it won't. So I tell people we're a framework that gets you started in the right direction. And maybe there's other tools, Colby is one of them, and so forth, that will go a little deeper for you, but it gives you the time to do that. So you want to solve the issue because you built a muscle of taking time to fix this rock or fix this people problem so you can move forward. Otherwise, they would just, again, they'd let it fester. Like, well, either they quit or I leave. Something's going to happen, but I'm not going to deal with it right now. I'm too busy.
Well, that's such an interesting, frame to look at because speaking from my own business, like what you said is oftentimes it's the person that you can relate to their pain, but they might be a different personality set than you. Like, for example, the visionary. So
Yes.
you can speak to their pain, you've been there, so you have the empathy, but it's almost like opposites in terms of, who you are, how you are. It makes it easier for you to connect. When I talk to clients, there's been folks I've helped that have MBAs they just love marketing. Like I've talked to business owners, maybe they're the visionary, the president, the founder, whatever, but they just love marketing. So they try to bring me on in addition to them. And it's just like, well, that's not inherently, that's been some of my worst times
Okay.
versus the people that maybe they love working in the business, doing the operations, the fulfillment, or maybe their finance or accounting or whatever kind of brain they are. It just works better. Love that frame where opposites truly do attract when it comes to personalities.
Yeah.
One last question for you, Chris. I know we're close to time. Where can people contact you, connect, learn more, get in touch?
Thank you for that. I'm on LinkedIn, Chris Castillo at EOS. And real easy, just give me a call, 916-717-3332. Again, my job is to build a relationship with the client. So I want to talk to them. I want to find out, tell me about your business. Tell me what's working. What do you do really well? Tell me what's not working. And then tell me what you want. If I can get them to answer those 4 questions, then I possibly can help. Nothing else. Here's a free book. Here's a tool. Call me if you have any questions. One of our core values is help first. I'm always willing to have a conversation with anybody, a DOE 3 million or more, 10 employees or more, because I know what they're going through. And they're like, hey, we're at 3 million for the last 5 years. I want to be at 10. Okay. We know the gap. Let's start looking how we're going to make that happen. Less than a million, we have another program for that. Here's a free book, right? I figured if they're nothing else, have a free conversation and free information. Hopefully that solve a problem for them. So again, if I can talk to them, then hopefully we can see what they need. Sometimes it's not us yet, and that's okay.
That's okay. Well, everyone listening, thank you. And thank you, Chris, for tuning in. I don't run ads in the show, but my only ask is that if you found value like I did, please share with a friend. It's the only way the show grows. Until next
Of
time,
course.
everyone, be well.